Darren McDonald, red, Darren McDonald.
Woo!
Do you ever wonder how some things were named? I do. Thanks to an ancestor of mine, I know how a few things received their name. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, sit back while I tell you about Red. The story centers around my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Luther McDonald. He was a big man for his day, over 6.5 feet tall, weighing in at 300 pounds, with a full beard and a full head of hair, the color of a Texas sunset. Folks called him Red. The year was 1836. Texas had just won its independence from Mexico. The city of Houston had been founded and declared the capital of the Republic of Texas. Red moved his family from the mountains of Tennessee down to the deep piney woods of southeast Texas. Like many men of the day, Red was a hunter by trade. He used his trusty Tennessee flintlock, you know, the type of rifle that requires gunpowder, wadding, and bullets. One day while Red was out hunting for deer, he wasn't having much luck. He shot a few rabbits, a few squirrels for dinner, but he never saw deer. Around sunset, he was heading home when he heard a rattling sound coming through the woods. He followed the sound and came to a clearing. There in the middle of the clearing was a huge oak tree. At the base of that tree was the largest buck deer Red had ever seen. It was over 10 feet tall. Its antlers were over 10 feet wide. It was raking those antlers up and down the trunk of that tree, leaving deep gouges in the bark, making the leaves shiver. Red aimed and fired. When the smoke cleared, he couldn't believe it. He had missed. Instead of running away, that deer turned towards Red and started walking towards him. Red had obviously never dealt with a Texas deer before. Red reached for another shot, only to discover he was out of wadding and out of bullets. The deer stalked closer to Red and lowered those huge antlers. Red knew he'd better do something quick, or he'd find himself on the business end of those antlers. Quickly, he poured in his last measure of gunpowder. He snatched a patch of red hair out of his head and stuffed it into the muzzle for wadding. Then he found an acorn, just the right size to fit into the barrel. The deer was almost upon Red. Red took careful aim at the deer's head and slowly squeezed the trigger. Crack went the shot as it echoed through the woods. Crack went the acorn as it embedded itself in the deer's skull, right between the antlers, with a few of Red's hairs still attached. The deer was stunned, but it didn't fall. Instead, it looked at Red, slowly turned, and walked off into the forest. About a year later, Red was out hunting again. He heard a rustling sound coming through the brushes. Out sprang that same deer from last year. Red was stunned at what he saw. The deer was now covered with a bright red fur. And there, between its antlers, had sprouted an oak sapling. Red could do nothing but stare as he watched the deer walk away. Red tried to tell his family and friends about the red-coated, tree-headed deer, but no one believed him. That is until several years later, when some of his kinfolk discovered something. In a clearing, they found an oak tree, the likes of which they had never seen before. It was tall and straight, with gouges running the length of its trunk and bright golden red leaves. At the base of the tree, they found 2 huge antlers and a large patch of red fur. It was now common to see red-coated deer in that area, where before there had been none. It was so common, in fact, they named the community after them. Now you know how some things receive their names. For you see, if it weren't for Red McDonald, we wouldn't have the red oak tree, the red deer, or the city of Deer Park. Now,